I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And in the next hour, we're going to take a closer look at what's happening and all the latest in the investigation into the murder of those 4 students from the University of Idaho. And let's begin with the question, who did it? Who did it? You know, here we are. This happened November 13th. We still don't know the answer to that question, and it's a big question. It may be a difficult question to answer. Investigators are not giving us a ton of information for obvious reasons. It's part of the investigation. They release what they want to release to help get an answer to this question. Anything that will provide more leads, more tips, more information. And when you think about this case, I think we've got to go back a step tonight and go backwards a little bit and say, okay, where were they? Where were they that night? Maddie and Kaylee. Where did they go? Who did they interact with? What did they do? We know they were at a bar first. They were at a bar that night, and to me, there's a lot of information that could potentially be gleaned from that bar. Do they have surveillance video? Were there people there taking pictures? Who was there? And then what happened to the food truck? The food truck, thank goodness, streaming video and audio of what was taking place at that food truck. And that is another part of all of this. And at the food truck, of course, everyone in the beginning was always talking about Hoodie Guy. And Hoodie Guy has been cleared by police. But tonight, I think we need to take a closer look at Hoodie Guy, just to get a better idea of what was going on at that food truck and exactly what is his relationship to Maddie and Kaylee. Did they bump into each other at the bar? Did he follow them there? Did they walk with him? They were walking near him. And did they say anything to him? What did they say at that food truck? Because as I mentioned, there's audio. Now the microphones for this audio are really focused on the guys who are working in the food truck. It's their live stream, and they did it all the time. But the microphone is picking up sounds from everywhere. So what I'm gonna do is play a little piece of that food truck video. And I want you to listen to the audio as you watch Maddie and you take a look at Kaylee and the Hoodie Guy. Their voices are in the background. Again, the main voices you're hearing in this video are gonna be the guys working in the food truck, because that's where the microphones are, but they also pick up some of the background noise. So listen closely for that background noise. What is it that Maddie is saying, and who is she saying it to in the video? Let's take a look and let's take a listen.
So you sitting down all night Friday night?
I mean, that was a solid rush. It's a good thing that it ended, but this is Friday and Saturday in a row. They got you down around 1, so I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot, guys.
Guess he's gonna be extra slow in a second.
We had to beep it. It's a word we can't say on television. That's what we heard. That's what we heard. And the pointing, and there's, you know, Hoodie Guy's there with another guy. What exactly is going on in that interaction? How significant is it? Again, he's been cleared publicly by investigators in this case. But we're going to go back. I mean, I think it's a point in time where we can go back and take a closer look at what we looked at when this case first broke. So let's bring in tonight's guests. Joining me in Los Angeles, California, retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. In Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen, and in New York City, psychotherapist and host of Talking Live on Facebook Watch and the Bite Side podcast, Dr. Robbie Ludwig is with us. Great to have everyone here. Bobby, we're going backwards tonight a little bit, revisiting, because these are the last images that we know of Maddie and Kaylee alive that night. And at the top, I set this up, you know, who are we looking for? From my perspective, you want to look at, you know, anyone that they were interacting with that night, right? That's an obvious place to look. And it seemed from that little piece of the video in the background, something was happening between Kaylee, Maddie, and hoodie guy and the guy she was standing next to, because she drops a word that we can't say on television. And I'm wondering how significant that is, and pair that with the fact that he's been publicly cleared by investigators.
Yeah, but it's difficult because even further on in the video, when the girls ultimately leave, he leaves right away too, and he seems to be watching them leave, and he leaves in the same general direction. The problem is, these are at a time in young people's lives when they're developing romantic relationships or social relationships. They have freedom sometimes for the first time in their lives, and they behave in certain ways that seem a little odd for us, a little forward, a little aggressive, a little awkward, whatever it be. You know, these young adults are in that period of their life. So what we may be interpreting on this video, I trust investigators. They looked at it, they talked to him, maybe he had an alibi, maybe whatever made them comfortable in ruling him out. Sure, on the surface, it does look a little strange, particularly knowing what happened to these two girls just a few hours later. But remember, this is a time in young people's lives when they are maybe not acting as, you know, they did when they were much younger, or they do when they mature as adults. So, you know, I trust the investigators. They had a strong look at this guy, and they ruled him out. I don't know what basis they ruled him out on, but certainly based on this video, I'm sure they took a hard look at him.
You'd have to, Jason, because this is, again, the last image is close in time to when the murder takes place, and he's there. I mean, right now we're looking at him, and he's there on one side. They move, he moves. But there is an acknowledgement by Maddie of him, or both of them, the two guys that are behind, because she does turn and say something. Let's play it one more time, Jason. Again, the voices you hear in the forefront of the audio are the guys in the truck who are making the food. Listen to the background.
Serena, you sitting down on Friday nights?
I mean, that was a solid rush. It's a good thing that it ended, but this is Friday and Saturday in a row that got you down around 1, so I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot, guys.
Guess he's gonna eat extra slow in a second.
Jason, second time around. What did you notice there? Anything?
Well, you know, you can see from their body movements, you know, Maddie points over to the guy and saying something back. That guy is sitting next to the bearded guy with the ball cap. That certainly would be somebody I would want to talk to see what the context of the conversation was like. Because, you know, when you're a college student fresh away from your parents, you know, F-bombs are pretty common because, you know, you're like Bobby said, you're developing your social skills, you're kind of more forward, and you're more colorful with your language at that time. You know, certainly they're not moms and dads at that moment, so they're not worried about what the kids are going to hear, but definitely something's going on there. And there was a Daily Mail story where the guy with the beard and the ball cap actually defended Hoodie Guy and said that he followed them from the bar. He felt like he had good vibe from him, and that there was good intentions, that he was just making sure that they got home safely because they were both inebriated. And he said that he probably thought he had amorous intentions. Well, that's pretty common, college age, leaving the bar, you know, you're hoping to get lucky. So it's common that someone's going to try and pick up a couple drunk girls on their way home, thinking that they're have a chance. So it's not uncommon, but we also know that many times in these scenarios, leaving the bar is when somebody's most vulnerable, where there are rapes and there are murders. So it's definitely something worth looking into.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, after that verbal exchange and the pointing by Maddie, I noticed Kaylee doesn't seem to be concerned or worried. I don't see any fear there.
Yeah, it didn't seem like there was fear. It almost sounds like this was a normal occurrence. They were very pretty girls. I'm sure they were used to having men like them or try to pick them up. And it seemed like they were pretty comfortable with that. Like they were able to decide who they wanted to be with and who they wanted to blow off, and felt comfortable with that. I'd be interested in really understanding why Hoodie Guy was dismissed as a potential person of interest. I'd be curious to understand more about that. But it's very possible he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and it happened to be videotaped.
Well, let's take a look now, and we'll go back a little further. When they first arrive at the food truck, we've got some video to look at. Let's put that up on the screen, and we can see the hoodie guy seems to be walking very closely to one of them. Watch his feet, and he kind of turns away there, and they walk away, and he's standing in the background there. And then, I don't know, could be a little chilly, so you can't have your hat backwards with your hood up. So you turn your hat around, you put your hood up. Could be because it's cold. I don't know. Anything about that arrival, Bobby? And the way he's kind of back, kind of just, watching them?
Well, I mean, when they first arrived, like you said, he's really close to her. I mean, he almost bumps into her. I mean, he's only inches away when the video first starts, when they first come into frame. And then he's clearly like pacing back and forth. Like you said, he changes his, he's what we call furtive movement. He seems a little, I don't know if he's nervous, but he's fidgeting with his hands in his pockets. He fidgets with his hat and his hood. And then he doesn't seem to buy anything. He seems to be not waiting for food or waiting in line. He seems to just be right there. You see where he's really close to her at that point. And clearly he's right behind them. He's looking at them. Again, he doesn't, these other guys in the foreground seem to have ordered their food. Maybe they're waiting for the food, they're interacting, but he's not talking to anyone per se, right? And he puts his hood up there and he's just walking back and forth furtively. This alone would make me take a strong look at him, as investigators apparently have.
And Jason, the other thing people are pointing out, and we haven't had it in a little bit of slow motion, but does he make, when he comes in, it almost looks like he looks into the camera lens before putting the hoodie on. And I don't know if we're reading too much into it, but it was sort of coincidental that he was glancing towards the camera, kind of like this, and then the switcherooski happens at that moment. Let's watch. Here it is, Jason. What do you think? And, I think he just glanced. He could just be looking at the food truck, but it was towards the lens, Jason.
Right, Vinny. This is what you call camera aware. If he was reacting to the fact that there's camera recording, yeah, he's concealing himself. He's keeping a safe distance. He's hoping that there will be no way to identify him if he's got bad intentions. Now, it could just be a coincidence. He walked in, he kind of has like a bodyguard posture. He's close to the girls. He stands back to keep an overview of all the activities while the girls are ordering their food. But yeah, you can interpret that one of those two ways, either that he's trying to stay away from camera view or that he's there to protect them because he wants to make sure they get home safely, when that's really where the guy with the beard and the ball cap really takes that position, that he was there with good intentions and that he was at the bar earlier, the corner club, and they saw the girls there and saw all the guys had interest in him. So, is he a guy just trying to make sure they get home safely? Or, did he have other intentions after they left here on their way to their home?
Yeah, the last situation I covered with someone who was trying to get someone home safely in a college case was Kristen Smart, and it ended up being the killer. Now, this guy's been cleared, but he's making sure people that these two young women get home safely, yet they did get home safely, but then they were murdered. It's
right.
Yeah, that's Dr. Robbie, here we go. I want to show now the end part of the video, and this is the part, again, Bobby was talking about it, everyone's been talking about it. They get their food, Maddie and Kaylee, they're doing something with their phone. They're laughing, they're giggling, and there you see the hoodie guy behind them talking with the other gentleman with the ball cap, and they're laughing, so, I mean, they're communicating back and forth. They're not paying a lot of attention right now necessarily to Maddie and Kaylee. He's kind of turned away from them. They're taking some sort of a selfie, it looks like, or a picture of her getting the food. I don't know. Investigators should know, but as soon as they get the food, his back is turned, they're gone, and then his friend points that they're gone, and he's like, hey, where'd you go? And he's off. He cuts to the left, and then it looks like there he may even have waved to them or acknowledged them, and then he's off to the right.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, it's kind of like Monday, what is it called? Monday back quarterbacking or
Monday morning.
Whatever it is.
Monday morning.
You can tell I don't watch football. But it almost seems like, I don't know, I look at this kid and I'm like, well, he could have been drunk. He could have been stoned. He could have been attracted to these women, and he was looking to find a way to connect with them. And who knows why he walked in that direction. Maybe he wanted to interact with them without having other men around. It's really hard to know. And I'm sure there are many college guys who could look at this hoodie guy and say, you know, I've been there, or I've certainly acted like that. So
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've witnessed it myself. Yeah, you bump into someone, you make a play, nothing happens, and then you're just waiting to see if there's that last chance. But here's what I want to read to you, though. This was the interview done in the New York Post with Kaylee's father, Steve Goncalvez. He said he admitted that he also fears that a hoodie-wearing man spotted lingering near his daughter and her best friend, Madison Mogen, also 21, was ruled out too quickly for killing the pair and their two friends. Some people came to us and said that he's out of the country. He didn't take the DNA test, he said. So let me ask you this, Bobby Chacon. If this is true, and I have no idea, the father thinks that he might be out of the country. I don't know where he is. But if he was a student at the University of Idaho and the semester's not over and he is now out of the United States of America, and you had cleared him, would you take a second look at him?
Well, it depends on how we cleared him, right? So if he had an airtight alibi and he had video evidence or some outstanding piece of circumstance that cleared him, then no, I wouldn't take a second look at it, because we've got definitive proof that he's not the guy. If, you know, and I'm pretty sure that with the pressure and the publicity and the focus on this case nationwide, the police are not going to rule out anybody too quickly. I'm sure when they made a public pronouncement that they cleared this guy, they were very, very convinced that this guy was not their guy, because there's so
One more
much
question, no, Bobby, one more question, follow up on
Sure.
that. Is there ever an investigative reason to publicly rule someone out, even though as investigators you haven't really ruled them out?
Well, that would be a strategic investigative avenue if there was some reason to do that, if you want to see what his behavior is like after. Because remember, publicly pronouncing him cleared is not a legal determination. It doesn't tie them in any legal. Now, of course, a defense attorney later on might use that against them to undermine, but it's not legally binding on the police just because they say he's been cleared. It's not legally binding in any way. They could always go back to him. So you could do something like that and then see what his behavior is afterwards. But also, you're very careful, because this person has gotten such intense scrutiny in the media now. You want to be careful not to Richard Jewell him. You want to be careful not to ruin his life with intense media publicity like the FBI did in the Richard Jewell case. And that's probably why they haven't said it. If he wants to come out, he's free to come out to the media and say, but the police should not name him. If he's not a suspect, they should not, you know, again, take the chance of ruining this guy's life and have everybody jump on him, and all these podcasters start to look into his background and do their own investigation of him, because it could lead to negative consequences for somebody that's not guilty of anything.
Absolutely, and Richard Jewell, absolutely. I mean, his life was ruined, absolutely ruined. Dr. Robbie, for the family, though, Kaylee's father has had a little bit of a rift with law enforcement, because they're not telling the families everything, right? And he's getting a little frustrated. He's tried to do as much as he can. He's hired a private investigator. Do you think if they did tell him that he could hear something that might satisfy him? Do you know what I mean? Because the father, you know, he's lost his daughter, and people in that position, they want an answer and they want justice, because that's all that they can grab onto at this point. Do you think maybe if law enforcement reached out to him and explained to him why they cleared him, that might help him a little bit at this point?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure this father wants a resolution in the case, and it's a little bit bizarre at this point that, we don't know who's responsible for this. So I'm sure somehow including the father in a way that makes him feel like he's, he won't get paranoid, right? And think something's being held from him. After all, it is his daughter, and I think that they should recognize that and try to interact with him in a way that preserves the integrity of the case, but also helps the father know that they're working on his behalf and they can share certain things, but not others, because, they want to find the true killer, and sharing too much information at this point might not help them with that goal.
All right, folks, our guests are staying with us. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the so-called stalker. Investigators tracked down a so-called alleged stalker in this case. What does that mean to this investigation? We'll talk about that, plus coming up next hour. In Fort Worth, Texas, a police officer responds to a call from a concerned neighbor in the middle of the night who noticed his neighbor's front door wide open. Tonight, we'll show the body cam footage of the officer approaching the house and killing the woman inside, the babysitter, to our own law enforcement expert. What went wrong? Did he follow protocol?
Put your hands up. Show me your hands.
In 2018, a killer walked the streets of Laredo, Texas.
He took advantage of the vulnerability of this community.
I mean, there was a lot of fear.
Former Border Patrol agent Juan David Ortiz,
accused of killing 4 women.
Ortiz carried out these murders in a cold and callous way.
Now he faces a jury and life in prison if convicted.
The Border Patrol serial killer trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 9/8 Central on Court TV.
Malden University.
This is a very active case. We're doing a lot of work. Granted, not a lot of it that can be seen in public, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of people working on this case, and we're going to continue.
And that's Aaron Snell from the Moscow Police Department. And one reason why I am trusting and believing him tonight is because of part of this investigation. You may remember early on, a lot of people were talking about this stalker that Kaylee had. And there weren't really specific evidence of what this was, like who, what, where, or when. It was just like she mentioned she had a stalker. So to me, that's like finding a needle in a haystack. Well, Moscow PD, with the help of the public, and that's another great reason why this is a very public case, the public providing some information and tips, it seems like they may have found Kaylee's stalker. This needle in a haystack, and it's actually 2 needles. Let me read it for you. This is from the Moscow PD. Using tips and leads, investigators have identified an incident involving Kaylee at a local business, which may have been the stalker reference she made to friends and family. In mid-October, 2 males were seen inside a local business. They parted ways, and one male appeared to follow Kaylee inside the business and as she exited to walk toward her car. The male turned away, and it did not appear he made any contact with her. Detectives contacted both males and learned the 2 were attempting to meet women at the business. This was corroborated through additional investigation. Based on available information, detectives believe this was an isolated incident and not an ongoing pattern of stalking. No evidence suggests the 2 males were involved in the murders. So let's bring back in our guest, Jason Jensen. This sounds to me like, oh, a couple guys trying to meet girls again. Here's a girl, we're following her, but they never really make contact with her. It seems like one of them just sort of follows her, which is kind of, a little creepy to say the least. What are your thoughts? What's your takeaway from what Moscow police were able to find that happened at this local business?
What they're describing in that scenario with the business sounds like, 2 guys fishing for girls, someone walks in, walks out. and they missed their opportunity, and that's why the guy walked away. That sounds like a very sincere effort to try and meet girls, but that's not the definition of stalking. Stalking requires repeated, at minimum 2 incidences that cause the person, the subject of the stalking, reasonable fear that they're being followed or harassed. And I would assume that Kaylee would know what a stalker is. From what they're describing about at that business, it didn't sound like it was stalking, and I think she would know the difference. So I would continue to keep digging into scenarios until you actually ruled out the possibility that she was being stalked.
Dr. Robbie, your thoughts here. Now, you can use the definition like Jason says of stalking, or you can use it in a more colloquial kind of almost not fun way, but kind of in a way like, yeah, somebody was stalking me the other day, And I'm wondering, we would have to we'd have to understand how she actually said it, like the context of her saying she had a stalker.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because college girls can get cheeky and say, oh, he's stalking me, when it isn't the definition of what a stalker really is. And when, people ask me, what do you think happened in this case? I will say, there really isn't enough information. But what I can say is the knife killings is so passionate, and the strength one would need to kill as many people in that room, makes me wonder if it is just one person. And my thought was there a psychotic stalker who thought he had some kind of relationship with one of the girls, and that's why it was as violent as it was, this kind of killing. But again, we don't have information, and I don't know, I guess you all would know this better than me, but could it be possible that, people in Iowa are not used to these kinds of crimes, and that something was grossly missed, and that's why we don't have any answers at this point?
They don't have murders in Moscow. They just don't. It's been years. Yeah. It's been years. But Bobby, am I right to be impressed that they were able to track down this incident? I mean, to me, it's a needle in a haystack. And then the second part is, do you think they should still be looking for a stalker?
Well, yes to both. I think that this is the challenge of this case. As the doctor said, these are young women, fun-loving women, vivacious, attractive women in a college setting. They are going to generate a lot of attention from young men who are feeling their way through these social situations, maybe for the first time in their lives. Sometimes they cross a line, sometimes they don't, but that's the learning process in these romantic situations when you're at that age of your life. These are the phases of life we go through. So the investigators are probably weeding through a lot of times that they've been hit on. Maybe they've been hit on by the same guy at the same bar a couple of times in a row, but that's the type of behavior that both is very common and can both be indicative of somebody that could do something like this. And that's the challenge investigators have. I'm sure there are multiple people that fit this description of somebody showing more interest and the girls not being interested in them. I mean, this is a very common scenario, but like I said, it's also a common thing where somebody like that could, lead to this kind of behavior. I mean, if they're mentally unstable, which, you could find somebody like that. So I think that that's the challenge of investigators. I'm sure one or more of these women had one or more multiple people that were exhibiting this type of behavior. They may have not have crossed the legal line of definition of stalking, but the creepy guy on campus or the creepy guy that's, very interested in this girl and he keeps being rebuffed, that just happens at this stage of young people's lives.
We've got more to get to. When we come back, we're going to talk about the latest from today in the update, but we also have to hear from Maddie's boyfriend, because this is tough. As we keep saying, these are young people, and to be in the middle of all of this and to lose someone you love at such a young age, it's tough stuff. Here's Maddie's boyfriend.
Maddie was my best friend. She was the first person I talked to every morning and the last person I talked to before bed. But I was lucky enough to be able to explore life with Maddie for about 2 years.
Miss Delivery.
My first impression of Ethan was some tall, goofy kid that, you know, looked athletic, and he was, because we played a lot of basketball during that time. Unfortunately, the basketball wasn't enough to convince him to join my house, so he ended up going to Sigma Chi, but that didn't mean we weren't going to be friends forever. So one thing he told me, because he told me he was going to join Sigma Chi, he said, if I do that, you better not block me and ghost me on anything. And I couldn't believe he said that, because I just knew I wanted to be friends with him for a long time.
That's Hunter Johnson, really good friend of Ethan. There's a picture of Ethan. And we've talked a lot about Maddie and Kaylee, but there hasn't been as much talk about Ethan and Xana. And now investigators, again, they send out releases each and every day, and something that they're still looking for is trying to figure out more about what they were doing, where they were that night, who they were interacting with. Take a look. This is from the Moscow PD. Detectives continue investigating what occurred from approximately 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th, when Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were believed to be at the Sigma Chi house on the University of Idaho campus at 735 Nez Perce Drive. So they're still gathering up information about what Ethan and Xana were doing that night. Well, if they're at a frat party, it would seem to me it wouldn't be that difficult to put those pieces together. There's people at a party, and everyone's, I would think, would see them at one point or another point of the night. I don't know if they're taking pictures, selfies, videos at the party. It would seem that they should be able to piece that together pretty easily. Let's bring back in our guests, Bobby Chacon, Jason Jensen, Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Jason, to me, this should be if they're in just one place and they're just at this frat party and it's a frat brother who's been murdered, it would seem that everyone at that party would want to cooperate and would come forward with all their pictures and sit down and tell investigators everything that they noticed, everyone that was at the party. I mean, to me, they should be able to put that part together.
That should be one of the easiest part of this entire investigation, because, you know, when you're a member or brother of a fraternity, they know who the members are. So they know who was present, who wasn't present, who brought guests, and it should be a simple process of just identifying them all and interviewing one at a time. So if they're having difficulties, it really makes you scratch your head, because they're turning to the public for that information. So where is the resistance? Why is there hesitation to come forward? There has already been news coverage out there from police statements saying, hey, we're not interested in what you were doing. We're trying to investigate the murder. So they should just simply come forward, and regardless if there was a bong or a hookah in the background, who cares? You know, share the video. Let's see what the behaviors are between people that interacted with Ethan and Xana, and let's just move on to the next phase of their investigation.
You know, Bobby, years ago we covered a trial out in Cape Cod, and they were trying to solve the case, and they had DNA, and it was Cape Cod, so it was a very limited population of people, and they requested everyone to voluntarily give a DNA sample. What are your thoughts about something like that in this case?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one, because, you know, first of all, like you said, it's voluntary. You can't compel anybody, and you can't make judgments based on someone refusing to give it, because there are a lot of different reasons people would not want to give their DNA. And so people are free to do that. In this case, too, it's a lot. I think even though Moscow is a smaller town, it's a larger university community, and they're somewhat transient. In other words, we heard that even this happened just before a holiday, and people took off. They wanted their kids to come home after this happened and not go back to school for a while, maybe until after the new year or something. So there's a lot of people that kind of left, which looks like a lot of times they're fleeing or something. But these are young people, and their parents didn't want them in that environment because no one knew what was going on. So you have a lot of people coming and going. In addition to students, the student body, you have a lot of people that work at the university that come through that town that supply the university with things. And so I think that's, if it's a small town and you have a limited number of people to test, that's one thing. I think it might be problematic because of the number of people and the nature of how many people come and go from a university setting.
In terms of cooperation, Dr. Robbie, and I could see this scenario also. Some parents may put pressure on their kids to just not get involved. I don't want you to be any part of this. Just don't talk to police, don't talk to anyone. Just come home and let's get out of there. And I could see that being very common, even with people that are 1,000% innocent.
I would agree with you. I mean, this is a very scary scenario. And if I were a parent, of course, I would want my child to cooperate with the police, but I would also want them safe, and if there's a murderer loose, I would not want my child to be the next person who's victimized. So I could see where parents are concerned. I could see where kids are afraid, whether they want to mention it or not. And maybe the feeling is let the police deal with it, let them do their thing, and the truth hopefully will come out.
Jason, the other part of the fear is, I think they're reporting somewhere between like 20 and 40% of the students didn't return after Thanksgiving. They just stayed home. They're studying remotely. To me, that's, I get it. And they're used to doing it after COVID, et cetera, but that could hinder your investigation as well, because if you're a student and you're a killer, my guess is you're probably either going to study remotely or maybe just not go back to school.
Right, that is one of the problems that they were faced with, because of the fact that the college offered remote teaching. So many of the students that didn't come back, you could easily argue, well, he didn't come back because he's guilty. No, because oftentimes criminals do flee the jurisdiction to avoid, being investigated. But if you got half the campuses away simply because they don't want to come back, that's going to be problematic, because you don't know which one is just legitimately learning abroad at home, or if they're trying to avoid the investigation.
Yeah, because the bottom line is the case isn't solved. That means that the killer has not been caught, and who knows who that person is? Nobody except the killer, I guess. And will they strike again? Unbelievable. All right. We've got more to get to. We've got the latest from the police chief who was speaking out today. Plus, coming up next hour.
In San Antonio, Texas, the trial of former Border Patrol agent and accused serial killer Juan Ortiz continues. The trial continuing today after a juror fainted yesterday during the gruesome testimony and photographs brought into court by the medical examiner. We have a live report from the courthouse.
This whole situation is horrible. There's no other way to say it. It's horrible.
Tomorrow, me and my command team and other individuals will be going in to box up personal belongings of the people that live there. And we're going to be getting those items back to the families. It's time for us to get those things back that really mean something to those families, and hopefully to help with some of their healing.
That's going to be difficult. Absolutely difficult for the families. It seems like police are going to go in and sort of gather up those personal mementos that were left in the rooms, including the rooms where 4 of the murders took place. Let's bring back in our guests, Bobby Chacon, Jason Jensen, Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Dr. Robbie, how about that moment when police have to give back to the families those mementos and those things that were in the rooms of their children who were murdered?
I mean, it's an awful moment, right? It's a moment of another finality. I mean, you know, it's part of the grieving process, and hopefully will help them to heal. And but this is all torturous. This at this point feels like a bad dream, and it's especially hard for parents or crime victims to grieve because they imagine their loved one in pain and having to deal with such horror, which is something that people who, you know, lose someone, they don't necessarily have to deal with that. So this is just going to be a very difficult moment, but it is part of the healing process and something that needs to be done.
Another part of the investigation a lot of people have been talking about is Kaylee's dog, who was there, and Moscow gave us an update there about the dog. There have been numerous requests about the dog found at the residence on the morning of November 13th. Arriving officers entered the residence and found the deceased victims. During the search of the home, a dog was found in a room where the crimes had not been committed. Officers did not find any evidence on the dog, and there was no indication the animal had entered the crime scene. The dog was taken to Animal Services and released to a responsible person. Bobby Chacon, your thoughts about that part of the story? A lot of people have talked about it, but it doesn't seem like it's leading to anything, the fact that the dog was there.
Yeah, and what could it really lead to unless the dog had some type of evidence on it? I mean, look, if it was my two dogs, I have two big dogs, one German Shepherd, one Rottweiler mix, and they would have probably fought the killer to the end and probably would have taken their lives with me. But if this is a dog that's kept in another room or it was in another room in the house, it didn't have any blood on it apparently because it said it was not in the crime scene. This was, as we know, a very bloody crime scene. Indicates to me the dog had no blood on it, probably had no other evidence on it. The dog can't tell you what happened or what it saw, obviously. So, you know, I don't think there's a lot to be gleaned from keeping that dog in some kind of shelter or some kind of custody. They probably physically examined the dog to make sure it didn't have any cuts, bruises, scratches, blood, or anything like that on it. And beyond that, the dog, you know, is of limited value.
Yeah, and Jason, I don't know this dog, what type of dog he is. Like, does he make noise when there's strangers outside or anything? But a lot of people are talking about that. And we go back to the fact that the report is that all four victims were sleeping when they were murdered. So the dog seemingly didn't alert or wake anyone up.
Yeah, so because of the dog, I mean, I'm a dog owner too, just like Bobby. And one of the things I would be concerned about or curious about is, what is this dog's disposition, its demeanor about strangers, you know, interview people familiar with the dog, the other roommates that lived there, as well as family members, if this was a dog that lived previously with a family member, to learn about that. Because one of the things that does strike me is the fact that this dog did not react when there was a stranger in the house in the middle of the night. Usually you would have barking or something if that's the kind of dog, you know, a protection dog. If he was just asleep in the other room and is very docile, then it's meaningless, but we would want to know.
Jason Jensen, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, Bobby Chacon, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.